Welcome back, everyone, to For the Haters podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the continued support. As I keep working to grow For the Haters, I'm trying something a little different with this episode. We're experimenting with a more storytelling format, adding narration to help bring these stories to life. I'd really love to hear your thoughts after you listen. Now let's get into this week's episode. Today we're joined by Brooke. In 2023, Brooke's husband was killed in a head-on collision with a drunk driver while on his way to work. What followed was months of court dates, legal delays, and raising two daughters in the aftermath of sudden loss. Today, Brooke is navigating motherhood, grief, and advocacy while pushing for change in the DUI sentencing laws. This is her story. Before Brooke ever loved Shawn, she had already decided who he was. Isn't that how it always starts? A rumor, a reputation, a version of someone passed around a small town like currency. And sometimes the person everyone warns you about becomes the safest place that you've ever known.
Everybody always talked about how he was such an asshole.
Brooke was 24. Shawn was 37. Already a father of two. On paper, that's the kind of detail that people like to dissect. Age gaps, baggage, timing. But love doesn't read paperwork. It just recognizes something steady.
A nice little age gap.
Age gap, yes.
You know, there's something about relationships that start when you're older, though, because you know what you want.
Yes.
But the man that she met that night wasn't the version the town had built. He was softer, quieter, more attentive than anyone gave him credit for. And I keep thinking about how easy it is to mislabel someone before you've ever seen how they love.
He was a hard worker. He was loving. He was attentive, a good cook. He could build anything, fix anything, and he was the best dad. He always told me if I would have never talked to him first, that he would have never spoke to me, because he always said that I was out of his league and that he would have been too scared to talk to me.
Some relationships take years to feel like home, and some feel like home immediately. 6 months after meeting, they were building a family, not in a fairy tale way, in a real way. Diapers and work schedules, school drop-offs, little routines that don't seem like much until you realize they're the glue. And the thing that Brooke keeps coming back to is how present he was inside all of it. Not in those big, showy ways, in the everyday ways that quietly make a house feel safe.
We have two daughters. Brooklyn is now 12 and Harper is 7. He was really big on family dinner, and he did not like us to have like electronics at the table, because he liked to cook, and then we would all sit down and enjoy our dinner together. He would pick the girls up from school, and the first thing they would do is go to one of our local grocery stores. They would always pick out chips and candy, and to me, he did little stuff like that daily. It was all, and he was very attentive. Baths, homework, sports, school functions. Like, we've had the girls in gymnastics, cheer, softball, basketball, volleyball. He's been there for everything.
Who were you before this happened?
Oh, gosh. I feel like such a completely different person. Life was fun. I didn't have to worry about anything. I knew what to expect. We had fun. We loved each other. And life is 1,000% different now.
There's a moment before tragedy becomes official, where your body knows before your brain does. She says she just knew, and I can't stop thinking about that. That quiet, sickening knowing, the kind that settles into your chest before the phone ever rings. August 25th, 2023, started like any other Friday. By mid-morning, nothing in her life would ever be ordinary again.
Shawn worked at a steel mill and about an hour and 15 minutes from our home, so he usually left about 5 a.m. every morning. So he had texted about 5:15 that morning, and when I got up at 5:30, I texted him back, and I didn't get a response, which wasn't abnormal, so I didn't think anything of it at the time. I got the girls ready for school. I took the dogs to the groomer, which was my sister, and my boss had texted and said, there had been a wreck on the bridge, and I had to cross that bridge too to go to work. And she said the traffic was shut down, so don't go sit in the traffic. I'll let you know when the bridge is open so you can come to work. When I got to the groomers to drop the dog off, I had texted Shawn. I was like, hey, did you get stuck in that traffic? Because I haven't heard from you. And I called, and I didn't get an answer. And when I dropped the dogs off with my sister, I was telling her, I was like, Shawn hasn't texted me back, and I'm a little worried because he was very good about every day when he got to work at 6:55 texting and saying, hey, I made it to work. I'll talk to you in a little bit. Love you. Have a good day. And I hadn't heard anything. So she was like, well, let's just call his work and try to figure out first before we jump to conclusions. But I just had this feeling come over me, and I don't think I can ever accurately describe it, but I just knew. I just knew that something had happened.
Brooke's boss called her again to let her know that there was a fatality on the bridge. And that's the moment that the air changes. Because fatality is such a cold word for what it really means. It doesn't say who, it doesn't say why, it just drops into your day like a weight. And Brooke doesn't have proof yet, just the same feeling she can't describe. But when she starts calling and texting over and over, you can hear it. This isn't panic. This is a wife trying to outrun a truth that's already caught up.
And that's when I started calling and texting and calling and texting. I was like, I'm really fixing to embarrass you if you don't answer me, because I was like, I need to know you're okay. Mm-hmm. So my sister called a friend of hers, and he called their boss, and he said Shawn hadn't made it to work. And I knew.
You knew.
So I drove myself to the hospital and told them that I heard there was a fatality on the bridge and that I was pretty sure it was my husband.
How did you end up telling your daughters?
I called my dad. My dad and my stepmom drove in, and they got here before the girls got out of school. And so they went with me to pick them up. And my girls, I think, knew something, because they were like, what's Pap and Mimi doing here? They're never here on a Friday after school. And I told them they just wanted to surprise them. And we had something to talk to them about when we got home. And so when we got home, my dad and stepmom stood off to the side, but they let me talk to them.
Yeah. Do you have to try to prepare yourself for that conversation?
Yes, all day long. I kept trying to figure out how I was going to tell them.
And what did that conversation look like when you ended up telling them?
So I brought them onto our front porch, and I just told them that I had to tell them something. And Brooklyn was like, what, Mom? And I was like, well, Dad was on his way to work, and he was in a wreck, and now he's in heaven, and he's not coming home anymore. And they just cried.
In that moment, do you feel like you have to hold out on your grief for theirs?
I still feel like I do that to this day.
Yeah.
But I also want them to know that we can grieve. So I've tried to tell them, if you're ever sad, cry. Because I do cry, and I do cry in front of them sometimes. But I did hold back a lot because, our whole entire world was shattered.
This is the part that feels almost unbearable to say out loud. A blood alcohol level of 0.281. Wrong way on a bridge. An impact so violent it erased familiarity. There is something deeply cruel about not being allowed to recognize the person you love one last time. Some losses are loud, but this one was final.
He didn't go to the dentist a lot because he hated the dentist. So I called every local dentist office, and none of them had dental records for him. So we had to get him identified by a prior surgery he had in his ankle, and the screws were in his ankle. They were able to identify him that way. Once that was done, then we were able to start planning his funeral. But that took us a little over a week.
Wow. Have you had conversations prior to this about his wishes?
Yes. My mom died unexpectedly when I was pregnant with our first daughter, and she didn't have life insurance. So we had talked about whether we wanted to be cremated, buried, how we wanted our funeral to be. So I knew exactly what he wanted done.
Yeah.
Down to the rock and roll t-shirts. Like, he was heavy. He wanted a Metallica song played at his funeral. So I knew how to do everything.
He seems like a guy I would have hung out with.
He's pretty cool. He was pretty cool.
Grief doesn't wait until you're ready to be practical. It hands you a clipboard in the middle of the worst week of your life and says, decide, songs, clothes, cremation, or burial. And what gets me is how Brooke talks about it. Like she's trying to honor who Shawn really was, not who death tried to turn him into. She knew his details, the Metallica, the t-shirts, the personality. And in a week where everything felt stolen, there were a few wishes she couldn't fulfill.
He wanted Metallica Inner Sandman played, and I just couldn't do it. because of some of the words. So I just switched and changed to another Metallica song because I was like, I feel like it's kind of morbid. And so I switched it. The hardest decision was the cremation. And I think it was just because we didn't have a choice. I felt like we had to have him cremated just because of what the wreck it had done to him. Yeah.
Is that what he wanted, or?
He said to put him in a pine box and kick him in the ditch to save money. But he said he didn't care either way.
Is there any pushback on these decisions that are being made, or are you supported fully by his family?
So Michael and Chloe are his oldest children, and we all planned the funeral together. We picked the songs together. We put all the pictures together. Like, we did everything together.
What were the final goodbyes like with him?
Our youngest daughters would have been the night before when he kissed them and put them to bed. And that was the last time I talked to him also, besides the text message he had sent that morning. But so it took us so long to get him identified, and he was burned beyond recognition that they had already told us that we couldn't see him. So what I asked was, could I hold his hand at least one more time? And they said no. So the funeral home was really nice, and since he wasn't going to be embalmed and stuff, after a week, it's kind of a little rough. But they made it to where we were able to go in. He was in a body bag, and we got to go in and say goodbye that way. So I put my hand on his chest and just said what I needed to say. And the big kids went in too. But that was our final goodbye. Like, that was ripped away from us. So, because we didn't get closure, we didn't get to see him. So...
Do you still feel like there's a piece of you missing from that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. You always hope, well, what if they got it wrong? What if it wasn't him? What if? And so I think what made it real for me, I did that. And then, he worked in a steel mill, so he had like the fireproof boots or whatever. And the funeral home was going to try to help me. He had a really long beard. He loved his beard. He was real proud of it. And like, his beard was gone, his everything, like his glasses. So I wanted to salvage anything I could. So they brought his boots and what clothes were left that he had on, because they're the fire hazard ones or whatever from work. And I think that's what made it real, because I knew Shawn would have had his stuff on. He would have come home in it. And so the boots were just burned but still standing tall, and everything else was just melted in a glob. So I knew then, I was like, he's never coming home. I think that's what made it real, or feel real, or at least I knew that it was really him.
Yeah.
I keep thinking about what it means to say goodbye to someone through plastic and distance. No last squeeze of a hand, no peaceful image to carry home. Just imagination filling in what you were never meant to see. And then walking back into a house where two little girls are waiting for you to explain forever. How do you explain forever to a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old?
Our oldest, she kind of was more like her dad. It was like, it is what it is. And she didn't want to talk about it because she didn't want to cry. Now, my youngest was very, very interested. She would ask, could she die and go to heaven for a little bit to see dad? And so I had to explain to her that, like, that's not how it works. And then they started asking a lot of questions about the person that hit their dad. And, I mean, I told them the truth, but what I thought that their age-appropriate truth was. I mean, he was a drunk driver. They know that.
Can you share how you explained that? Because I think there's just some value in learning.
So after I told him and we've talked about it, like Harper, who was 5 at the time, just is like, why did he have to do that? And we'll never know the answer to that. And I was like, but sometimes people do things that they shouldn't do, and other people pay the price for it. And that seems to suffice them. They seem to be okay with that answer. They've asked a little more about why didn't he just, have someone drive him? Why didn't he stay somewhere? And I tell him I don't have the answers to that.
Grief is supposed to be private, messy, contained. Brooke didn't get that option. In a small town, tragedy spreads faster than the truth. And instead of collapsing inward, she stepped forward. Not because she was ready, but because someone had to protect his name.
I don't feel like I got to grieve behind closed doors. It was thrown out there, And, there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of speculation. From day one, I had to defend Shawn. I feel like I had to be transparent and open so people didn't think I was trying to hide anything. I feel like if I could have grieved differently, that it might have, or grieved quietly in private, it might have been a little different. Because I have been very, very vocal.
The part that makes this even harder to hold is how close it was. Not a stranger, not some faceless name in a report. He lived in the same town. Brooke knew of him, knew of his wife, knew he had a child. And before this, he was just another person on her Facebook feed. And I keep thinking about how small town life does that. It shrinks the distance between people until something like this happens and suddenly that closeness feels unbearable. Because now his name isn't just a name. It's attached to the day her life split into two.
As soon as they told me his name, I knew him. I went to school with him. I graduated. He was on my Facebook. So I knew him. And I was just angry. I was angry because it didn't have to happen. It was a choice he made, and then Shawn paid the price for it.
Do you stay friends with him on Facebook?
He deleted his Facebook, completely deleted it.
Okay.
Yeah. Shortly after, I don't know if he deleted it or someone else did, but it was deleted shortly after.
18 months is a long time to wake up every single day, knowing the person who changed her life forever is still living theirs.
Family vacations, family pictures, anniversary trips, holidays, church.
All while you're learning how to breathe again. Justice moves slower than grief, and she wasn't even grieving yet. She was holding herself together for what was coming next.
I feel like all through that, I was fighting for justice for Shawn. Multiple phone calls, gathering information, and honestly, the DA's office had said usually these cases don't go to court this fast. Sometimes it's 3 years before you see the inside of a courtroom, and I was not going to allow that to happen if I could help from it. So I think I didn't fully get to process it until he was sentenced, because it was always going to court, talking to a lawyer, going to the DA's office, and fighting for justice for Shawn.
I think people imagine court as closure, like you walk in broken and you walk out healed. But most of the time, court is just another place you have to show up and survive. Another room where you have to sit still while the world discusses the worst moment of your life like it's paperwork. Brooke went into every hearing, even the ones that lasted minutes, because when you lose someone this suddenly, control disappears. And sometimes all you can control is one thing. You will not be absent from a room where his life is being measured.
What were some of your thoughts when you were in the courtroom during those hearings?
I honestly wish he would have made an effort to speak to us and tell us how sorry he was and that he regretted his decisions. I looked for his family to say that too, and they never spoke to us.
And then it becomes numbers, 10 years, paperwork that tries to translate a life into a sentence. But Brooke's not speaking in numbers. She's speaking in outcomes. A man is gone, 2 girls are growing up without their dad, and the person responsible still has options, still has appeals, still has a future waiting on the other side of prison. It's hard to explain how unfair that feels without sounding like you're asking for revenge. But Brooke isn't asking for revenge. She's asking for the punishment to match the damage.
He is to serve 100%. He's appealing that now. I just went to court the other day at the Court of Appeals for that. He also, there's a new law, Bentley's Law, where he has to pay child support on the children. So we were awarded $113,000. He doesn't have to pay that until a year after his release, so the girls will both be adults. And that wasn't even a month or a year of Shawn's salary. And he's also appealing that too.
Before the judge sentenced the driver who killed her husband, Brooke was allowed to read her victim impact statement. It's the one moment where the courtroom belongs to the people who were shattered. And Brooke did not waste it, because these images just don't fade. And sometimes the only power you have left is making sure the truth is spoken out loud.
I saw pictures of the wreck, which I kind of knew what they looked like because I'd seen his car. But there was a picture of him in there, and he was still sitting in the car, holding in the steering, like holding the steering wheel. That was the position he was in, and he was burned. And I've made sure to put that in my victim impact statement, because honestly, I think that's the picture that the drunk driver should have to see every night before he goes to bed, because that still hasn't left my memory. That's what I see a lot of times.
There's a moment in stories like this where everyone listens for remorse. Not because it fixes anything. It doesn't. Because remorse would mean you aren't alone in carrying that weight. And Brooke's listening closely here, not for tears, but for truth. Because tears can be performance. What she wanted was accountability, a direct look, a sentence that didn't try to soften what happened. And when that doesn't come, it doesn't just hurt. It hardens that fight.
He cried on the stand, but I didn't feel like it was sincere. I think it was for the judge to give him a lighter sentence, because the judge had the choice to choose from 8 to 12 years. And I think he felt sorry. He apologized to his wife and daughter, too, and I do believe that was sincere. I honestly do think that was sincere, but to us, I don't think so. Yeah. I think it was just to try to get sentenced less. If he had reached out to me ahead of time and said, is there something I can help you with around the house with your kid, anything, I think I might have been more receptive and not so hell-bent on justice.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody before that this had happened to, so I don't know that if I knew it happened to a stranger how I would feel, but I feel like if Shawn had done this to someone, I would love Shawn through it, but I would hold him accountable. And I honestly feel like I would have reached out to that family, whether they hated me, screamed and cussed at me, anything. But, Shawn left 4 kids behind, a wife, a grandbaby, and I don't think that they see that as a big deal, because he went to prison for 10 years.
Yeah. Do you hope for a sincere apology one day? Or are you still hoping that day comes?
I hope that when he does get out of prison, that he goes and speaks to other people that are drinking and driving. I hope he goes and speaks to high schools. I hope he uses this as a way to show people that it can happen to you. It can happen to anybody. You're not above it. I just hope that he uses it for positive.
Some people collapse under grief. Some people go quiet. Brooke built something. Not because she asked for this platform, but because if Shawn's name was going to be spoken, she wanted it spoken with purpose. It's a refusal to let his story end on a bridge.
We do a Shine for Shawn. We've started that last year, and we're going to pick local charities or businesses in our town. Last year we did our Paws to Care and our Humane Society, because we like animals, and we donated food. And I work with Mothers Against Drunk Driving now, because they're an amazing resource for situations like this, and they're still walking through it with me today. We do our annual walk, and we raise money for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. So I think what shocked me the most is that I got up every single day and I kept going forward, even though something extremely terrible happened to us. I want Shawn to be more than just the person that got killed on the bridge that day. I want his name to mean something, to be positive, and not just be, oh, he was killed by a drunk driver. So I think that helps me grieve too.
Is it the advocacy that keeps you going, or is it keeping Shawn's memory alive?
Keeping Shawn's memory alive is probably the first thing for me. But I feel good about speaking, because had someone done that maybe in our area before, we might not be here.
Mm-hmm. Have you found support groups that of similar people? Does MAD offer support groups?
They have a victim. They have victim services, and I've met several people. We actually did. They award the police officers that get DUIs and stuff, and we did a pinning ceremony, and I met several women and men there, and you start talking to them, and some of them have formed nonprofits, some of them do annual walks, and I feel like You become a family. Nobody wants to be a part of it, but once you're there, they're a great family to have.
Do you include your children in your advocacy?
Yes.
Like, is it something that's important for them too?
So Harper and Brooklyn have both attended the ceremony pin-ins before. This last time Harper chose to go, Brooklyn chose not to. I'm never going to force them. She had a basketball game and she didn't want to miss it, but I'm never going to force them to do anything. But I do hope that they choose to continue on at some point doing that with me, but I'll never make them. But now when I tell our story, when I do the victim impact panel, I have pictures in there of Shawn before the wreck by himself, with us as a family, with all of his children, with his grandbaby. And then I have, of course, the wreck pictures. And then after that, what our family looks like now. And one of the pictures in there is Harper. After Shawn died, a couple of months after he had died, she was hugging his urn and talking to his picture that sits there with him. Because that's the reality, I think, that people need to see. And if Harper ever chooses for me not to have that in there, I would take it out. Yeah. But right now they're involved in the process.
What part of the DUI sentencing process do you think needs to change?
All of it. I think when people get slaps on the wrist for even their first DUI, it doesn't teach anybody anything. I mean, I understand fines and taking your driver's license, but people still drive. So, and now I do think that he got a 10-year sentence, and that's a pretty good long stint. But there's some people that have done it and served 8 months and just been on probation. So I think until the laws are stricter, longer sentences, I think we're still going to continue to see people drinking and driving and killing people.
What do people misunderstand about the impact drunk driving can have?
I think the biggest thing for me is everybody likes to call it an accident, and it's not an accident. He might not have intended to kill Shawn that night, but drinking and driving, that's a possibility. That's a real outcome. So I think people treating it as an oops or it was his bad, I don't think they acknowledge how lifelong it is. The thing I say the most is Shawn got a death sentence. Me, the children, his family and friends got a life sentence, and the drunk driver got 10 years. And how's that fair?
Yeah. How much do you think advocacy takes away from you?
Nothing. I think that it's helped me grieve. I get to share Shawn's story, so I get to talk about him often. I get to tell who he was. And if I can just change one person from making that decision, then I think I've done something really good.
Daytime is survival. Work, sports, emails, fundraisers. But night is honest. And when she says his absence is loudest in the quiet, I felt that, because that's when there's nothing left to manage. Just the space where someone should be.
In the quiet. Every night.
Do you find that your daughters also, do they come and visit you at night?
Harper sleeps with me every night.
Is this a place that you're alone? But I guess, with daughters, it's you know.
Yeah.
Do you find it harder when you're by yourself without them? Are there moments where you don't have them around, where you are by yourself?
Where I can just let it all out? Yes. Yeah. So I had begged for a screened-in porch, and Shawn had built it before he passed. And so, the first year, I sat there every night after the girls went to bed and just sat in the swing, and that's probably where I feel him the most.
So in this screened-in porch,
yes.
That's where you feel closest to him?
Yeah.
Do you talk to him?
No, I think at first I did. Now I don't. I kept wanting to have a sign from him. Mm-hmm. So until I got that sign, I talked to him. But I got that sign from him. So I feel like what was needed to be said was said.
Yeah. Can you share what that sign was?
Yeah. So he always cooked dinner, and we're music people. We love listening to music. So when he cooked dinner, we would be in the kitchen and we would dance around the kitchen. And that was my favorite thing to do with him. So I had fell asleep in the recliner one night because I was not sleeping well at first. And in my dream, we were standing in the kitchen and he was holding me close and we were dancing. And he said that he would be here if he could, and he just wanted me to know that he was okay. And I woke up, and I felt like he was letting me know that not to dwell there, to move forward.
I think there's beauty in finding moments like that for ourselves, right? Whether it's real, it's not, it helps us heal parts of us to take baby steps kind of forward. We talked about who you were prior to this happening. Who are you now after?
I'm way stronger than I thought I ever could be. A good mom. I'm an advocate, and I think that I'm somebody that Shawn would be proud of.
Yeah. What else have you learned about yourself?
Oh, gosh. I think that my love for Shawn is a lot more than I thought possible. And I think that this is something that's going to carry with me for the rest of my life. But I think that I've learned that I can make it through, and I can still be a good mom and be a good friend and do the right thing in life. When I've really wanted to crash out and be ugly, and I haven't. And I've tried to handle this situation with as much grace as I can.
This is where the story begins to shift. Not because the grief ends, but because her relationship with it changes. Some days are still heavy. Some nights still break open. But Brooke isn't waiting for the pain to disappear before she lives. She's learning how to carry it while she keeps moving, how to parent through it, how to show up through it.
I always say that we're never moving on, but we're moving forward now. And I just think that Shawn would want us to be happy. He wants us to be happy and have fun. And I try to remind the girls of that he would not want us to sit at home crying all the time and being depressed, because that's not how he lived. So I just try to remember that.
At the end of this year, it'll be 3 years since Shawn's death. How has parenting changed since then?
Oh, gosh. So before, I feel like we were happy every day. Our house was a home. I feel like that aspect has changed. Sorry. I've worked really hard to let the girls know that something tragic happened, but that we can still have a good life. Parenting is hard because I have to be the bad guy all the time now. And everything is on my plate, from work, school, sports, animals, yard work. So it's hard. Parenting was easy before because Shawn was fully in and he was present and he helped 50-50. So parenting is hard now.
How do you keep joy in your home?
Oh, goodness. I wish the girls were here so they could answer that, because the other day, one of the girls' teachers commented on a Facebook post and just said that they're always smiling and they're so happy and full of joy. And that was my biggest concern, was I hope that I'm doing everything right. I don't know. We travel, we visit our family and friends. I took them to a Metallica concert because that was like their dad's favorite thing. So I try to do everything that Shawn loved, and we just grow from there.
Moving forward doesn't mean leaving someone behind. For a lot of people, navigating loss, it means finding new ways to carry them with you, in the routines you rebuild, in the stories you keep telling, in the choices you make because of them. For Brooke, remembering Shawn isn't just about looking back. It's about making sure his life and the way he loved his family continues to ripple outward long after the day that took him away.
So I have the big urn of Shawn. All 4 of the children have a matching little, and it's a gas tank from a motorcycle because he loved his Harley. So they all have matching ones. I had jewelry made for all of our girls, and we have a granddaughter who was 3 at the time. I had stuff made for her with his ashes. We had teddy bears made out of his work uniforms for everybody. I had a bench made, and it's in our, because, he wasn't buried, so we don't really have anywhere to go and talk to him or put flowers. So I had this really cool bench made from this lady off TikTok. It's so pretty. And I was like, the girls can go out there and sit and talk to him. And when I put it in our flower bed, because I have to pull some bushes first, I'm going to put his ashes down there and then put the bench on top of it.
Moving forward doesn't mean the hard days disappear. Grief has a way of resurfacing when you least expect it. In memories, in milestones, in ordinary moments that suddenly feel different. And even now, Brooke says there are still days when the loss feels just as heavy as it did in the beginning.
What does hard look like for you right now?
Harper is the youngest, and we still have really bad nights. Even the other day, her teacher messaged me, I think it was one day last week, and Harper was struggling because she missed Shawn so much. She had to stop her classwork and go and see the counselor. I've held her, I can't even count the nights where she's cried herself to sleep because she just wants him back. She sleeps in his shirts. For her, I think it's been the hardest because she was his, little bestie. I always said they were so much alike. Mm-hmm. And, that some days are really hard. We watch a lot of his videos. We look at a lot of his pictures.
Is it continuously a home filled with him?
Yes. Pictures still up. We have all of his hats hung up in a certain spot. We took some of his shirts and we're having quilts made, but I feel like he's very present in our home.
Yeah. When you think about when your daughters are 18.
Yes.
What do you hope that they say about how you handled this?
I hope that they say that I showed grace. And that even when I did fall a little short, that I got back up and that I continued on in life. And that we've tried to make the best out of a really, really bad situation.
And this matters because sometimes people hear grief and assume the house becomes a museum. Quiet, frozen, always sad. But Brooke's home is still alive. There's still laughter, not because they forgot him, but because they remember him. Because joy doesn't betray love. Sometimes joy is the proof that love was real.
We do have our sad days, but now we can talk and laugh and think of all the good stuff. We talk about how much we miss his cooking because he was definitely the cook in our house. And we remember all the good.
What was his favorite dish to cook?
Oh gosh, ribs, smoked cabbage in our smoker, and he loved making twice baked mashed potatoes.
It's literally one of my favorite foods.
I was like throw a pizza in the oven kind of cook. So Harper humbles me on the daily and reminds me that I do not cook as good as Dad. And I'm like, I'm trying. We're on the struggle bus.
Do you feel like that you're actively trying to be a better cook
Yes, I've been trying now. So I ain't even gonna lie. Sometimes we hit drive-thrus so fast because I'm just tired. But I have tried a little bit more.
Grief has a strange relationship with time. At first, every step forward can feel like a betrayal. Like happiness somehow erases the person that you lost. But slowly, the shape of that grief changes. Not smaller, not gone, just different. And somewhere along that way, Brooke started to realize that loving Shawn and continuing her life weren't opposite things. They could exist at the same time, because the man she lost was also the man who would have wanted her and the girls to keep living.
I said, I'm never dating again. But I was 35 when Shawn was killed, so that was not realistic, honestly. And it just kind of happened. When I least expected it, I think, like, he was a friend. He helped do stuff, and it just kind of developed into more, and he's really supportive of everything we do for Shawn. When I have an idea about doing something, he's real supportive of it. So, and my girls absolutely adore him.
One of my first episodes I ever did for the Haters was with a friend of mine who lost her fiance suddenly, and it was about allowing herself to find love afterwards. And a part of that for her was whoever she loved had to have loved him too, to allow that welcoming into, because that love was like never gone. That love will still be here. Do you find that to be important for you as well?
Yeah, I always, well, not always, but I said after he passed away, like if somebody doesn't want his pictures up, doesn't want me to talk, then they're not the one for us, because he is a huge important piece of us, and he always will be. He's the father to my children, which luckily we haven't had that issue. I mean, he's helped me hang my wedding pictures back up after I had some remodeling done. If you come in my house, there's on our fridge, it's pictures of me and Shawn and the kids, and then there's pictures of me and him and the girls. So it's like he's been fully supportive being, because I mean, he says if Shawn wouldn't have died, you and Shawn would still be together.
Do you feel like he's started to heal parts of you didn't think were possible to be healed?
Yeah, because it was rough there for a while. I know why they say, like, you know, people die from a broken heart, because it's really, if I didn't have my girls, I'm not sure where I would be. But yeah, I think he's helped. I mean, because I had a good marriage. I loved Shawn. Shawn loved me. It was good. I knew what a good love was. And I would hate to deprive myself of that.
And what kind of partner would Shawn want you to have?
Someone that's attentive, someone that's a hard worker, and a good dad.
And what are some hard moments that come while dating and also grieving at the same time?
I mean, my kids always come first. And, you know, when I started dating Shawn, I didn't have kids, so we could just drop off a hat, go do what we wanted. But this time around, girls come first, cancel plans, can't hang out, can't whatever. So, but he has a daughter, so he understands, and I think we make it work.
And then there's the kind of grief that catches you off guard. The absurd moments that shouldn't be funny, but somehow are. Because love doesn't disappear. It just shows up in strange places, even in a cabinet above a stove, even in the middle of a day where you're trying to function like a normal person while carrying something that will never feel normal again. It's heavy and it's holy, and sometimes it makes you laugh through the tears.
The day started out with, I walked out of my house and he was in a box, in a bag. That's how the funeral home gives him to you until they get their urn in. Well, I walked out holding him because I was scared I was going to drop him, locked myself out of the house. So I sat down under the carpet and cried forever because I was locked out. Somebody unlocked me. We did the funeral, and then our church, but no, y'all did. They put on a big dinner for our family at a community center, and our friends.
She has people in the room.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. My best friends, Kayla and Aaron.
Yeah.
And so when we got there to this community center, it has a kitchen area, and I was like, what am I going to do with Shawn? And they were like, well, let's just put him up in this cabinet. And it was the cabinet above the stove. So after, you're there for hours, we're cleaning up, we leave, lock the door, and then I was like, oh shit, Shawn's like still inside, like we left him inside. And I was like, could you imagine if somebody like found him in there when they had a party? Yeah, so I haven't left him since then though.
Brooke, thank you for trusting us with this chapter of your life. There are no neat endings in stories like this. There's just the work of continuing raising children, walking into courtrooms, showing up on ordinary days without the person you've expected to grow old with beside you. Thank you for sharing his name, your marriage, and the life that you're building forward. Thanks for listening to For the Haters. Make sure to follow, subscribe, and share the show, and we'll see you back here every Monday with a new episode.